Hello, friends. Welcome to Akulmach Live. I'm your host, Chandrakant. I meet you every day and discuss about the business issue, and also we get guests to discuss about the pressing business issue. Today, we are discussing about how to make our organizations future ready. Things are changing very rapidly. The new normals are being talked about every day. The previous new normal shifts to something new, and therefore, in this changing world, we must actually get proper advice. And to provide the proper advice, I am joined by Dr. Shalini Lal today. She is very popular executive coach from India, and she has worked with many startups, many organizations, and she is going to share few tips with us, which will be very handy for all of us. So, without further ado, let me welcome Shalini Lal. Hello, Shalini. Welcome to this live stream. Welcome.
Thank you, CK. Delighted to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
All right, Shalini, before we proceed further, I would like to tell our viewers that if you want to join live with your mic and camera, we allow to do that. And the process of joining live with mic and camera is given in the description below. So all lines are open. You can join and discuss with our guests today. All right, let's proceed further. So, Shalini, as the subject of today's discussion is how do we keep ourselves future ready? Do you have any opening comment?
I think it's the biggest survival skill we need today because there's absolutely no one, irrespective of function you're part of or organization you're part of, who doesn't, in addition to everything else they do, need a separate, almost like a quiver of arrows, which is future ready skills. So there's no getting away from the fact that the world is changing much faster than ever in the past. And therefore, each one of us, no matter who we are, have to devote a certain amount of our time, attention, and effort in just staying future ready and keeping pace with all that's changing around us.
Excellent, Shalini. So I think that with this statement, let's start with our discussion. And the first question that our viewers have already sent to you is that uh, how organizations pivot swiftly, staying ahead of the market shift. As I said in the beginning, that the markets are changing very, very rapidly. Every day, new things are coming. I think the discussion on AI is also very stale right now. So the question is how organization pivot swiftly, how they change swiftly with the change. Over to you, Shalini.
It's a really good question, CK. And actually, there are two parts to it. One is just keeping abreast of changes requires you to understand what's changing in the outside world. So, engine one, so to say, is that of future scanning. And future scanning means, as a leadership team, being aware of all that's changing. And that change could be because of technology, it could be because of changing, cultural expectations from your employees. It could be the geopolitical impact of, events in the world. Certainly, the Ukraine war is a great example of that. Uh, so there are shifts that are, changing the landscape within which we operate. So the first engine is future scanning, which just is about keeping track of these changes and being able to connect the dots and say, okay, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my industry? What are the opportunities that are opening up that did not exist yesterday? And what are some of the threats that I must be conscious of, given these major shifts? So that's engine one. The second engine is actually organizational. So if the first engine is looking outside and understanding what's changing, the second engine is of being able to create that change, a response internally. And the two are very, very different. It's almost like the skills you need for one are really about, they're very cognitive. They're about understanding change. They're about being able to join dots which are might be disconnected. They are about being able to think about implications of those changes on your industry. So it's a very cognitive set of skills. On the other hand, the skills that you need for leading an organization that has the capacity for the kind of rapid pivots you spoke about has many other components to it. So there's the leadership part of it. What is the style of leadership which is predominant within the organization? Do you encourage innovation? Do you encourage experimentation? What is your organization's own ability to change? Because organizations are really quite varied in their capacity for change. There are organizations that are really very good organizations, but in a very slow and steady state. They're not really very good at shifting directions, quickly. On the other hand, there are organizations which are much more adept, much more practiced, much more skilled at being able to, do quick pilots, evaluate them, learn from them, do something else, and quickly move. So being able to create a nimble and agile organization, not just in the software parlance, but much more quick moving organization is a whole other. So that's the second engine, building an organization that's nimble, that's innovative, that's swift, and therefore has the capacity to respond to the changes that you saw in engine number one. So both of these come together. And in all the work that we do with our clients, we look at both. We need to make sure that the leaders whom we're working with understand how to track change externally, and at the same time have the skills to build an organization under them that can respond very quickly to those changes.
Friends, we are having a very good discussion with Dr. Shalini Lal. If you have any questions, you can send it across using the chat function of social media, because we are live everywhere. The comment, your questions will get displayed here on this side of the screen. As soon as your question or comment comes in, we will ask our guest. And also, if you want to join live with your mic and camera, you can. All lines are open. We are waiting for you to join in. All right, let's proceed further. Let's go back to our discussion. And I think you mentioned very, aptly about two engines, two organization, two buckets where you can put your companies. However, let's move on to the next question, which is, we have understood where we are today, but what tools and mindset? Tools and mindset are very important aspect of this. How do we build using these tools and mindset our resilience, and we can stand against disruption? So this is the question. The question is also displayed on the screen. So over to you.
Thanks, CK. That's a big one. The fact is that when we're living in times where so much is changing, almost like superpower is being resilient in the face of all these changes. And resilience itself has many components to it. There is the understanding of how do you navigate great ambiguity and great uncertainty. How do you create or carve out a path when there is none before you? You haven't had any examples. So how are you able to create that kind of path? How do you respond to setbacks? And the moment we move out from the stable state, much more certain environment that so many organizations have operated in, and move to a place where most of us are today, where things change constantly, and we ourselves have to find new ways, new responses to that. We're talking about a whole other set of skills. It's emotional, but it's also the capacity to keep learning and learning things that we haven't tried before. So, and perhaps we'll come to this later as well. One of the things that I find really successful people do is keep the learning muscle alive. So, there's not a week that goes by when they don't tweak their existing skill set in some way. And that is actually a skill. The ability to keep learning itself is a skill. And I know, the word learning agility has often been used for it, but at its heart, what is it? It's this capacity to be uncomfortable as a novice doing things you have never done before. And that requires a certain mindset. It requires, a little humility. It requires the realization that we'll often be very awkward at whatever it is that we're doing. So that's really where resilience comes from. And understanding that setbacks are still learning experiences. But as I said, these are all much easier said than done. And the more we experience these ups and downs, we build that internal tenacity that allows us, to navigate very uncertain waters.
Shalini ji, you mentioned a very powerful word in your response, and that is called humility. So, you know, most people don't know when to say no. I think that's part of the humility, because if you don't know, but you don't want to show to the world, oh, I don't know anything. So, the intelligence, humility is a key part of the mindset. Would you like to cover that aspect very briefly?
CK, I'm almost infamous for that. A close friend once told me that, why do you not respond to, many things that are discussed in meetings? And I said, see, I really believe I have an area of expertise, and within that area of expertise, I think I can sort of I can compare myself to people who've like me spent decades in this particular field. And at the same time, I'm very conscious that because all my energy and effort has gone into organizational behavior, organizational development, leadership, future readiness, there are many other areas that I don't exactly understand as well. So I'm usually the first to say that not my area of expertise. And I think in India, we hesitate doing that. When I was doing my PhD, I saw a lot of examples of it. So academics, because they, just necessarily narrow down into, an area and spend their entire career or at least several years or several decades, in the trenches in one area, are very quick to admit my area of expertise is this, my area of expertise is not this. And I think that's very helpful for us to know, because it means that wherever we know we are not the expert, we reach out to people like you and other people who have their own areas of expertise and can be far more helpful in those situations than we possibly can.
So, in other words, you are saying that the intelligent humility or intelligence or IQ is an important part of a mindset. So, I think that's, as you already mentioned, it's easier said than done. Let's proceed further to the next question, and that is, how do we uncover an collaborative approach? How do we uncover the collaborations and fuel the breakthrough? Basically, in today's environment, people are not growing simply because they do not know, like you mentioned, that your area of expertise is identified, and then only you know that, okay, this is what I'm good at, and for the next bit, I must collaborate with some other expert. But most of the people in the industry do not know about that. So, how do they uncover what collaborations they need? Are there any processes, methodologies that you want to share briefly with our viewers?
So, CK, actually, having a collaboration muscle is part of what you need to be future ready. And, it comes fundamentally from the fact that the world is changing so fast that there is no time for you to become an expert in everything. You just can't. You'll have an area of expertise and a superficial understanding perhaps of several others, which means that there are huge opportunities. And that's one way to look at it, that, okay, what problems can I solve with somebody else who has an area that's different from mine? What is it that we can do together that neither of us could have done on our own? And seeking these win-win opportunities is really, really critical for leaders today, and anyone who wants to, become a leader over the next few years must be very conscious of the fact that this itself is a skill. Seeing, okay, what is it that that person in front of you may wish to do? What are the skills that this person has which are different from yours? Collectively, how can you create a win-win situation? And this is applicable for team members, when you're earlier on in your career. Later, it's applicable for different teams within an organization, particularly in large organizations. This is not always so easy. But as you become more and more senior, this is also true for across the ecosystem. What is it that you can do, as organization XYZ in collaboration with organization ABC that suits both of you and allows both of you to explore an opportunity really quick compared to building a whole other organization. So it's a fundamental future readiness muscle now.
So, Dr. Shalini, I think when I interact with a lot of CEOs personally, at least 6 to 7 conversation I run every day. And I can, no offense to anybody, but I can confidently say that many people don't look at collaboration as the mean of growth or as a mean of future readiness. Would you like to give a message to such people, such professionals, whether young or old, whichever category they are?
It's so hard to give any message, but one of the things Uncube does is we help leadership teams define, what future readiness will look like for them. And almost always collaboration muscle is right at the top, just because of this. It's such an important skill, to be able to see, okay, if opportunities are opening really fast, remember the first engine that's spotting opportunities because the world is changing. And if our need for responding to that is like right now, it's such a superpower to be able to find someone else who's also interested in solving the same problem, creating a win-win situation that is going to be good for both of you. Being able to understand your different interests, different temperaments, personalities, negotiate through that. There's much higher order of skills. The reality is, these are not skills we are born with. We have to very consciously develop. And not all leaders necessarily have had enough practice with them. So it's super important. You and I are here today. This is also, it's a podcast, but it's a collaboration, right? We're having a conversation. You would have done this differently on your own. I would have done it differently on my own. And together, we're creating something very different. So it's a superpower.
Absolutely, Shalini. I think you mentioned it very aptly, and many people don't know even when to start collaborating. I think we leave it at that and move on to the next question, and that is, uh, can you offer some insights how leaders can be adaptive with a growth mindset? Because today things are changing very rapidly, and growth is important for the existence. So if companies do not grow, there is actually an existential crisis. So how they can actually have a adaptive leadership quality which they can demonstrate within their company, within their group, within their customer base. Um, Over to you, Shan.
Thanks, Siki. That's a really good question. And, I'll say that, why it's so important that to understand that leadership itself means something different in 2024 compared to, say, 2014. So, there are some parts of leadership which were always true thousands of years ago and perhaps will always be true. The fact that you have a direction you want people to go on, you have credibility, you're able to inspire trust. So there's that evergreen part of leadership which I think transcends time and place. So there's that part. But much more, to be a successful leader today, you have to have the capacity. Remember engine number two, which is you building teams and organizations that have a capacity to respond very, very quickly to changes that they're seeing outside. And here are some of the things we're seeing common as patterns in those leaders and those organizations that are really able to make those pivots very, very quickly. The first is that they tend to be fairly externally focused. That means they are very good at reading, engine number one, reading the signals. What is changing? What does that mean for me? They have the capacity to spot opportunity early on rather than, later when someone else has taken that ball and gone far ahead, or they are facing their own possible disruption in some way. So they're able to spot that opportunity because they're looking outside. So that's number one. Second, we see that the leaders who are really good at this are able to create a safe space within their teams where people can suggest ideas, because no matter how smart we are, our capacity for coming up with ideas, or our intelligence also, is finite. It's not infinite. None of us are gods. So to be able to create that safe environment where people have the freedom, or they experience that freedom to be able to give ideas, give suggestions, and then they're able to create teams which have good social IQ. So, social IQ, I mean, the team is able to actually create solutions that maybe a bunch of 5, 6 people who didn't know how to build innovative solutions and products just wouldn't be able to. So that itself is a skill. So you have, again, both the engines operating. There is, being able to see what's changing, and then being able to create safe spaces where collectively your team is able to respond to change by coming up with innovation. And often those innovations are just pilots, they're just experiments. Each experiment teaches you something, and you learn, you move on. And that's really what's common to them. Couple of other things we're seeing is they tend to be fairly data driven. So experiments are also treated like data points. Okay, the hypothesis, let's test this out and let's see what comes at the end of it. Then we can quickly learn, tweak that, and do version 2 and then later version 3. So just that mindset that we're learning, we don't know everything, we're learning. Let's quickly learn something, move on, create something better tomorrow.
Dr. Shalini, I think you made a very valid point or very vital advice from you. And that is make the dipstick study before you start investing, which is like data-driven approach. So it was an amazing conversation today, Dr. Shalini. This is an Tuesday afternoon in India. Thank you so much for finding time and talking to us and sharing only a little bit nugget of knowledge from your side for our viewers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me over. Thanks, CK.
So friends, we had a fantastic discussion, which is a very short one. You know that this is a very heavy subject. But if you want to reach out to Shalini for any advice, any input that you are seeking in order to run your group or your company, our coordinates are given in the description below. Thank you so much for watching us live. I will catch you again in the next one. Have a good one. Have a nice week ahead.